It's the Eagle Community Television Forum with your host, Gary Shorman.
Hi everyone, I'm Gary Shorman, and this is a forum on Eagle Community Television. We have a special guest with us today, James Meier, who is our new city commissioner. We'll talk to James about his background and why he wanted to be a city commissioner. Our program is brought to you by HaysMed. James, good to have you on our program.
Thank you very much.
I just made the intro. Why do you want to be a city commissioner, and what got you into that process?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a question I've
You
been
asked
asking
yourself
myself a lot. Now that
yeah.
I'm here, I ask myself that a lot, actually. I don't know. I've always liked government. I mean, I've always kind of liked looking at government, not just on a local level, but, state, national, It seems like everybody kind of has their thing, Some people are really into national politics, some are into state or whatever. I've always kind of liked it all. And I have previously to this run for office when I was younger and still in college in Emporia for state senate. I mean, I obviously lost. Probably they made the best call on that one, but
so I've always kind
of been interested in it. I mean, as far as here in Hays goes, I always watched what was going on. You've always been interested in what's going on in the community. I would say that I probably started really thinking about it really close to the filing deadline, and honestly, it was probably for no other reason than I didn't see other people signing up for it, and so I thought, well, maybe I might actually win. Yeah, I might actually win. So, I mean, if it's 3 spots and only 3 people sign up, I'll give it a shot. Why not? So, I think that for a lot of and I don't want to speak for others, but I think there was probably some interest from some people because of the mall decision. I know that was one that kind of got me initially thinking about it, but I didn't really get serious about it until I kind of saw that, there weren't a lot of other people signing up, so that's kind of where I was at.
James, you mentioned Emporia. Where did you grow up?
Originally, when I was a kid, I grew up in a little town called Durham. It's about 30 miles south of Abilene. It's in Marion County, and I went to elementary and middle school in Hillsboro because that's the district that Durham is in. It's just it's like a Catherine-sized town.
Yeah, it's a farming community for the most part.
Yeah, very, very small. My mom owned a restaurant there on the highway, and then they sold that, and then we moved to Hillsboro, and then eventually we moved to Marion. And Marion's where I went to high school. And if people ask me where I'm from, I always say I'm from Marion because that's where I went to high school, and that's where I have some of my best, I would say, childhood memories, you would say. And then I went to undergraduate school at Emporia State, and then I went to pharmacy school at KU. While I was at Emporia State, I studied abroad for a year in France, and then after pharmacy school, we lived for a year with my in-laws in Wichita while I did my rotations, and then we moved out here.
Well, right now you work as a pharmacist at Hays Medical Center.
Yep.
And also do some work at the pharmacy out at Walmart.
At Walmart, yeah, and then I even do kind of just contract with independent pharmacies, just fill in the area. So in a couple weeks, I'll be going down to Lakin just to fill in for a day for the gal who owns the pharmacy in Lakin. So it's kind of nice to go a bunch of different places. You get to see a lot of different things.
Now that's a whole nother program. We can do another program, Brandon. We could go out and do that and make that work. And I guess it's Jordan running the camera today. Brandon, you're at home watching, I suppose. So anyway, but that's a whole nother program when you talk about pharmacy and what goes on in that particular world and some of the new complications coming out with some of the meds right there. So you have a full-time, very busy job taking care of that.
Yeah, well, and really I would say, when you say you're a pharmacist and you work in a pharmacy, I think probably the public perception is like when you go to Walmart or Dillon's or someplace and you see them behind the counter and they're filling and dispensing and counseling patients. And that's a retail pharmacy. At the hospital, it's actually a completely different world, and most people don't even understand really what a hospital pharmacist does. I think they probably just assume you're doing the same thing only for hospital patients, but I actually work in the cancer center, so it's not really, I'm not counting medications. We're dispensing chemotherapy and mixing it and doing it in a hood, making sure that, the doses are right and, it's mixed in the right thing and people's doses are appropriate, and making sure that it's been mixed in a way that you're not exposing other people other than the patient to the chemotherapy agent. And the rest of the other pharmacists that I work with, they're up on the floors checking patients' profiles, making sure that everything's dosed appropriately. If they have an infection, they're on the right antibiotic to fix that. And there's a lot, it's a completely different world from retail. So I really like being able to do both, because that way I get to, they are completely different. So I get to experience both, and I think hopefully it makes me a better pharmacist, because then, I can explain things from one world to the other, whereas, some pharmacists, they kind of, they work retail and they do that and they know that really well and they do it really well, and others, they work hospital, they know that and they do that really well. So I get to do a little bit of both, so I really like that.
How much has that changed since you got out of school? I mean, that whole business.
I think that it used to be, the reason people used to go into hospital pharmacy is because you didn't have to deal with insurance. So all of that was taken care of by the hospital insurance part of it, and so you could just go and be a pharmacist and look at patients and make sure that they were on the right things and do your thing that you're supposed to be doing as a pharmacist, and you didn't have to worry about whether you were going to get paid for that drug and whether your costs were going to get covered. Whereas in retail, you feel like half your job is just calling insurance companies and trying to help patients and explain insurance to patients and why this isn't covered but this is covered. So that's one of the reasons why you did hospitals, so you didn't have to deal with that. And I would say that that is fastly changing. One of the bigger things that I do now is make sure that because chemotherapy is very expensive, is to make sure that we're getting reimbursed appropriately from insurance companies, that we're not losing money, that, things like that, that it's actually getting covered, that they have the correct diagnosis to get covered. And so I would say that's been, and that's been the biggest change, is now we have to deal with insurance companies, whereas before we kind of weren't involved in that. So, and I would say that I'm not really happy about that. I'm not a big fan of insurance companies. So,
well, when you take a look at what you're doing, it's a complicated business. But what you're doing with the city as a city commissioner, that's not a simple job either.
No, but thankfully you have Toby, the manager, and we have a new assistant coming, but before, there was Paul, and really all of the staff. There's been some changeover even since I started, but I mean, really, what I've noticed, the city staff knows everything. Like, if you ever have a question, I just feel like they know everything. They're just so knowledgeable. So really that part of it has been pretty easy for me.
Well, James, let's take a break, come back, and we're going to talk about some specifics of city and what you've learned in the first few months being a city commissioner. We'll be back with James Meier, who's a city commissioner and a pharmacist here in Hayes. Back with more after this from Hayes Med.
It's a beautiful day in our super high-speed internet great customer service neighborhood. Like you, this is where we live. In fact, our company is employee-owned, so it's our goal to improve the quality of life for everyone in our community by delivering faster, more reliable internet, clearer, more feature-laden phone service, quality TV channels, all with the level of customer service you'd expect from people who are your neighbors. Eagle Communications, our community connected.
Welcome back to the second half of our forum program. Our guest is James Meier, City Commissioner here in Hayes. If you have any questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, future programs you'd like to see right here on the forum, send me a note, gary.shorman@eaglecom.net. You can also call my office at 625-4000, 785-625-4000. And if you really want to go after it, go on Facebook. We're listed under ECTV Forum. Again, our guest is James Meier, who is a city commissioner, also a pharmacist here. We talked about pharmacy and some of the complexities there. Now we're looking into the city side of things and your job there. What have you learned in the first few months of being a city commissioner?
I learned that there is a lot of information about the city that I didn't know when I was just a citizen. I've learned a lot, and I'm actually really glad that I did it, if for no other reason than I feel like I am such a better informed citizen, and I really actually know kind of what's going on in the community.
Well, you mentioned the mall and really the tax structure that went into the mall, and that really kind of got you inspired.
Right.
What about that inspired you, and what did you learn after?
Well, to be honest, I think it was just it was an issue of fairness for me. I don't know if I said, my mom owned a restaurant for years and years and years when I was a kid, and I would sit, even when I was in kindergarten, I sat at the cash register and took the money. I mean, my parents made me do stuff even from a very young age, and even after that, she owned a restaurant in Marion for years and years, and I worked there through middle school, high school. So, and I just know, one of the things that bothered my mom a lot as a business owner was that she felt like she understood why people were trying to bring business into the community, because every community wants that. They want more business, and that's a good thing, and she understood that. But she always was a little bit disappointed that, whether it be the chamber or the city or wherever, that they didn't focus more on the existing businesses and try to help out existing businesses and give them, more incentives to do more, to expand or do more business or hire more employees or whatever. And so when when you see the tax structure that the mall got, I think that's kind of what maybe I don't want to say upset me, but maybe just rubbed me the wrong way, is that, we have other businesses in the community that also are trying to do good things and make a living, and it almost seemed unfair. So it was just a fairness factor with me. And I think it just comes from my background of my parents being business owners, and I just hear that, day in and day out, so.
Well, when you get into those kind of issues, you mentioned, you have a staff there that does a terrific job of helping understand that.
Yep.
But you also have, on the other side, you also have neighbors, friends, people that you meet out in the workplace. Are they giving you suggestions as well?
Oh yeah, there's no shortage of suggestions,
yeah.
Don't worry, yeah.
Yeah. And how do you handle that? I mean, how do you process, what maybe a constituent wants over here versus maybe the long-term goals that are maybe in better keeping with what the city's future should be?
Yeah, and I've learned that the only way that you can really try to balance those is to, I don't want to say learn not to care, but learn to take everything with a grain of salt. And to learn that no matter what you do, no matter what you choose, there's always going to be somebody out there who's going to criticize you and not like what you did. And you just have to learn to accept that and be okay with that. Not learn to just ignore them and just do your thing and not listen to people, but just learn that to be open-minded, listen to them, consider everything that everybody's telling you, but then once you've come to a decision, understand that there's going to be people who are going to criticize you and be okay with that. So
how soon have you learned that a decision needs to be made? Because sometimes there's a lot of information you have to gather. Do you make it right before the vote? Or do you make it that evening, or do you start developing your opinion? Because that's an interesting thing you bring up, because you have to have an open mind going in.
I think everybody, not just me, I think anybody who's in that position, I think you have an initial reaction of what you think you're going to do. But I mean, to be honest, the bulk of what the City Commission does is so non-controversial. I mean, last night, it was about playground equipment, and, I mean, there's just...
Everybody likes it.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing controversial about that. So, I mean, that doesn't really take that much thought. It's really just those one or two things, throughout the year that we might actually disagree on something. And I would say that most of the time on those types of decisions, I kind of have an inkling of what I'm going to do, but yeah, probably until you actually come to a vote where you really have to make a decision. Do you really make up your final mind? And it's not because you don't have, I don't want to say it's not because you're not making a principled decision. It's just that you want to stay open-minded and listen, because there may be something come up that you didn't consider before, and you need to stay open-minded and not be so driven in your opinion of being right or wrong or whatever, that there might be other possibilities out there that you need to consider. So
you have a couple big decisions coming down. One is the sewer treatment plant. And that's not a fun, that's not playground equipment that's fun to talk about, because it's a challenging deal. It deals with an essential part of our infrastructure that everybody needs every day, whether they want to talk about it or not. But yet, I think it's in the tens of millions of dollars to fix the problem.
It is. It's going to be $30 million, and we've already kind of gotten the biggest step with that was raising rates, and we've already kind of accomplished, we've already kind of gotten that Band-Aid ripped off and taken care of. So that, for me, that was the hardest part, was raising rates. Now we're into, what kind of plant do we want to go with, and you're thinking, the problem with it is that you're trying to make decisions that are going to affect people 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, and to know what the needs are going to be 30 years from now, and what kind of plant we need, and the long-term costs of it. Those are really difficult decisions to make. But what I really like about this whole process is that this is the first design-build process that we've gone through. And so we have a great contractor who's got all kinds. We've had multiple different proposals, so we've gotten to see many different things that we can possibly go with. We have a city staff who, I think Toby the other day was in a 10-hour meeting going over different designs and proposals. I mean, we have staff who's picking through this, spending hours on this kind of stuff, deciding what we're going to do. So when we finally get to where we're going to be forced to make a decision of what kind of plant we're going to go with and make those decisions, I'm confident that the information we're going to be given has been thoroughly vetted, and we can really come to some kind of consensus. So,
shifting gears a little bit back to your job and some of the things, you're on the Ethics Commission as part of the statewide part of things. How do you bring some of those things into your play as a city commissioner? Not only your job, but some of the things like the Ethics Commission that you're on as well.
Well, and most people don't even know what the Ethics Commission is. It's the I call it the FEC of Kansas, and most people know what the FEC, the Federal Elections Commission, and they enforce the campaign finance laws in the state of Kansas. So, if you running for state senator or state representative, then you have to file campaign finance reports, and they're going to go through those and make sure that you didn't take more contributions from somebody than you should have, or you accepted contributions from a business you shouldn't have.
How did you get on that commission?
It's a 9-member commission, and it's actually appointed by various government officials. I was appointed by the Speaker of the House, Meier. The governor gets 2 appointments, the Attorney General gets an appointment, Supreme Court Justice gets an appointment, the Speaker, and then the House Minority Leader, the Senate President, and then the Senate Minority Leader. All these people make an appointment, and then it's usually about a once a month meeting, and just basically we only get involved if there's a problem. Of course, we have a full-time staff, just like there's a city commission, but then there's city staff, there's ethics commission staff, and they're really the ones that are combing through the reports and bringing those matters to the attention of the commission. And it's been interesting. We were just talking about it just a little bit ago on the morning show. It's been interesting because I have a meeting with the Ethics Commission where we talk about the move of the local elections from April to November, and they're kind of looking at it as a good reason for budgetary reasons. But then on the city level, we're not so convinced that this was such a great idea. So.
All those things come into play. Yeah. You're a busy guy. You work in pharmacy, both retail and at the hospital. You do some traveling. You're involved with things like that in the Ethics Commission. How do some of the constituents that want to talk to you, what's the best way to connect with James Meier?
Usually email, and I've gotten emails before, and I try to respond to every email. I can't say for sure I've actually gotten that accomplished, but I mean, I can see it's a personal email, I'm going to respond to you. So.
Okay, very good. And we'll list your email address up here. Is that okay?
Yeah,
so people can contact you and make that done. James, thanks for being on our program today.
Yeah, thanks. That was easy. Thanks.
James Meier, our city commissioner here in Hays, newly sworn in as of April this year, wasn't it?
April.
Boy, time flies.
Time flies.
Thanks for watching our forum program here on Eagle Community Television. It's brought to you by Hays Med and by Eagle Communications, our community connected.
Hays Med is your first and best choice for healthcare. They're the only facility providing tertiary level services in this region. With more than 70 physicians and 26 specialties ranging from heart, orthopedic, spine care, cancer, obstetrics and gynecology, wound care, rehabilitation and surgery, including the Da Vinci robotic surgery, Hays Med is your comprehensive health provider for people throughout Western Kansas. Hays Med, helping people be healthy.